Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much that you came down all the way from Malta to educate us on this valuable program, which I'm sure will fetch us a lot of success in the future. Now, I would we would have a short Q&A session. So if any of our partners have any questions for Joseph, this is the best time you can ask him, since you will get the first-hand answers and the resolution to your queries. So anybody who would like to ask something? Please introduce yourself as well before asking your question.
Hi, I am Ajay Patavri from Proswell, Bangalore. You have been insisting long that it's been a place where there are a lot of financial interest among the companies. So could you elaborate, is this a kind of a tax haven or a place where investors, why would anybody look at Malta when there's other places available?
Yes. Malta is not a tax haven because the European Union does not allow tax havens. In fact, there is a drive now, a global drive against tax havens. Malta is fully compliant with EU rules. So we have structured our tax incentives in a way that they respect and are fully compliant with EU regulations. These have been vetted by the EU authorities, of course, and these have been agreed to. So yes, we do offer a lot of tax incentives. As I said, our development, economic development has been done, achieved hand in hand with foreign investors, and taxation and tax incentives are a very important component. But I cannot say that Malta is a tax haven. What characterizes a tax haven basically is that the country, that particular country, is not obliged to report certain economic activities to world, like the OECD, or regional, like European Union institutions. In our case, Malta will share its information with countries, and I'm not talking about individual information, we're talking about general information with countries who ask for it. So we are not a tax haven, but we offer good taxation incentives.
A little bit of elaboration on that. What sort of tax incentives?
Yeah, the tax incentives
for financial companies.
Yeah. Yes, the tax incentives vary from sector to sector. If you are in manufacturing, you have a set of incentives which have to respect what we call EU state aid. Okay? So there are certain regulations which needs to be followed. As I mentioned, the film industry, there, for example, the incentives are that all the VAT which is paid in Malta during the course of shooting is refunded, plus there is a grant of up to 20 or 25% of the amount spent in Malta. Generally speaking, as I said, if you structure your business in the right way, the percentage of tax in Malta is about 5%. How this happens at the level of the shareholder, at the dividend level. Because what happens, the normal corporate tax in Malta is 35%. And the company pays 35% tax. But then it can claim from government a refund. And the refund is normally up to 30%. It depends on the double taxation agreements and whatnot. So first, the company pays 35%, then it can claim back 30%, up to 30%. Okay, so the effective tax is about 5%. But obviously, this has to be structured in such a way that it is compliant with EU rules.
Okay, we have somebody already over there.
Hi, this is Ashwini from OmniScience Capital, Mumbai. I have a question on like what is the tax structure for funds that are domiciled in Malta? And as a business owner, do I necessarily be staying in Malta to get these tax incentives if there are any? Thank you.
Yeah. The tax regime, as I was mentioning, is very fast. I mean, we have, for example, one program for high net worth individuals. Okay, so if you are, say, a designer today or an IT consultant, and you are earning 100,000 euros or more, you could be domiciled. This has nothing to do with residence and nothing to do with citizenship. But for tax purposes, you domicile your operation in Malta, and the rate of tax, once again, will be, in that case, a flat on your wealth income, will be a flat 15%. This was a way how Malta tries to attract foreign talent and foreign entrepreneurs to base part of their operations in Malta. So in Malta, we do not charge taxes on income arising around the world. It's only the money which is transferred to Malta then becomes liable to tax at local rates. And we have two types of taxes. We have VAT, which is normally 18%, but we do not have VAT on food, not hospitality, food, medicine, and property. So if you buy a property, you don't pay VAT in Malta, okay? We have some other taxes, but we have no municipal taxes. We don't have capital gains taxes. So the tax regime has really been molded in such a way as to accommodate foreign and investors and expatriates who use Malta for their international or global operations.
Are profits made in Malta repatriable to the parent company, or what are the regulations regarding repatriation of profits made there? Are there any regulations about it?
Regarding?
Repatriation of profits made in Malta by a company.
Yeah, you can transfer the profits to wherever it is most convenient for you. Sometimes it may not be your home country. And also, we have situations, especially with the German authorities, because technically to be domiciled in Malta for tax purposes, you have to spend 186 days in the country, okay? Or you have to prove that you have not lived in any particular country for more than 186 days. But as you know, it is now becoming increasingly difficult for tax authorities to know where you have been. Because you can say, okay, I've been living in Malta for 186 days. But you could have been in Germany, you could have been in France, you could have been all over Europe. And it's hard for them to tell. So, yes, as I said, from our part, we cover and meet our commitment. How best to organize yourselves in terms of tax matters and where you transfer the profit, that is entirely up to you. Okay, I'm not a tax expert, so I'm not the best person to answer your questions, but I can tell you that yes, you can repatriate your profits to any country which you wish to do so.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Good evening, Joseph. And good evening, everybody. My name is Amit Verma, and I'm from Global Education Ideas, Delhi. My question is, Joseph, for somebody coming to Malta, what would be your advice in terms of investing in which sector of real estate? Would it be residential, commercial? And within that, would it be favorable to invest in, let's say, hospitality, or maybe office companies, or maybe education? Somebody points out. So, according to you, what would be the profitable, or say advisable sector in the real estate market? Thank you.
Yes, I think when it comes to investment, especially in some areas, it really depends on your particular background and competences. What I can say is that with regards to residential investment, the person, an expatriate, and even a Maltese who has not lived in Malta for 5 years can only buy one property, okay, for residential purposes, unless that person or a local company in his name, okay, would be doing trading in property. There are also specially designed areas where expatriates can buy more than one property, and which they can either rent out or resell, etc. Also, for commercial purposes, if you want to buy a hotel, you can have as many hotels as you want, as long as that property is bought for the purpose for which it was constructed. So if you buy a hotel, obviously, as long as you keep it as an ongoing hotel, you can have as many hotels as you like. So yes, there are some restrictions, and the reason for this is simple, that there are many rich people in the world, and the government wanted to avoid that someone which is very powerful, has a lot of money, come in and buys big pieces of land or property. So this is the reason why we have some controls. But yes, property, of course, is one of the main sectors to invest. But as I said, it's not the only one. IT, films, film productions, these are all pharmaceuticals. These are all areas where we are doing very, very well. But of course, if you are in pharmaceuticals, you have to have a competence. You have to have an understanding in pharmaceuticals.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Joseph. This is Nilesh from GeoEdutech, Pune. So I have a question here. Firstly, actually, thank you very much for your information about the financial situation in Malta. So you said that GDP growth is nearly 6.5% as compared to other European countries. So I just want to ask, as per my information, the Malta is export partner with UK. Okay, and that is the reason maybe the growth is very high right now. But what about after Brexit? So I just want to know, what would be the situation for to-be investors in Malta after Brexit?
Yes, that is a very important question, and unfortunately, I don't have an answer. The reason I say this is that we do not know what Brexit will entail. There are still negotiations taking place, and the final shape of EU and UK relations have still to be determined in many spheres, including immigration. Okay, so it's difficult because we do not exactly know. What I can tell you is that in terms of trade, Europe needs the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom needs Europe. But now it's up to the politicians and the people in Brussels to find the right formula. But there's another point which I would like to make in this respect, and this is the fact that, once again, I have to remind you that Malta was part of the British Empire. We are still part of the Commonwealth. And if I may say, our relations with the UK are even stronger than the relations with the European Union. They surely are very deep. There is a bond which was built over 200 years of British living in Malta, many married Maltese citizens. So there is a very strong bond between Malta and the United Kingdom. As I said, our commercial system, our education, it's all very much UK oriented. So the fact that we have this bond, the fact that we are part of Commonwealth, gives me the comfort to say that within whatever the EU agrees with the UK, Malta will always have a good relationship with the United Kingdom. And this is the only comfort I can give.
I'm Sushil Sharma from Delhi. Now, one question is, you see, how freely the properties are transferable within Malta? I mean, somebody invests money in Malta and then say it wants to transfer the property. I mean, what kind of duties of any kind of implications on that?
Yes.
So if, suppose somebody invests, say, 200,000 euros there and the property doesn't suit him and he wants to transfer or wants to buy some other property instead of that property, how freely the properties are transferable? What kind of taxes are involved or what kind of duties are involved in that? And second question is about the repatriation of investment, which was, I don't think that was answered properly. I mean, how freely it is repatriable? I mean, somebody invests money, what is the tenure after which the money can be repatriated? What is the tenure? I mean, can the money
As long as you present accounts, okay, audited accounts, because if it's a company, every company has to have its audited accounts, and they have to return those accounts to our, what we call the Malta Financial Services Authority.
There are two types of investments. One is the capital investment, the other is the profit out of it.
Yes,
So
but
the
even the capital.
repatriation is of the profit or of the capital.
Yes, you can repatriate both. Capital, of course, there are various investment protection agreements also within the OECD, but obviously the biggest guarantee that I can give you that you can repatriate your capital is that if there wasn't this peace of mind that this can be done, both in terms of profits and in terms of capital, many people, many companies will not invest there. So I can assure you that both profit and capital can be repatriated. With regards to the transfer of property, what normally happens is that when you buy a property, this is registered with our public registry. Okay? The contract has to be prepared by a notary, and the notary deposits that contract in with the public registry, which is like a database of all the property transactions. This also fell as part of the responsibility when I was at Identity Malta. Now what happens? If you intend to sell that property and you have a client, normally the procedure is that you enter into what we call a promise of sale. And you say, okay, we are hereby agreeing that within 6 months you will buy this property from me. Sometimes they ask for a deposit, 5 to 10%, but there are certain conditions subject to bank finance, subject to all planning authority permits, subject to making sure, because the notary then has to make sure that the property belongs to you. So he will need to go and do research with the public registry to ensure ownership of that property. If everything is okay, then after the time we agreed, 6 months, 9 months, we meet again at the notary and the actual contract of sale is done. So we do it through a promise of sale. You create an interim period during which all the necessary research and conditions are met, and then the actual contract is entered into. The sales tax on the property, yes. Well, registered property, it depends if it is your first residence and all these things. Even for expatriates, if it is the first residence in the world, so coming to Malta, you would have sold your home or house in say, India, and it is your first residence, there are special, what we call stamp duty, okay? This stamp duty normally is 5% of the value of the property. But as I said, in some instances, it can be even less than 5%.
Okay, since we are running short of time, we just have one more question. I guess.
Hello.
Yeah, somebody already has the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Rajiv Aneja from Delhi. I am actually in real estate for last 26 years. So my question is very simple. Like in India, our investor invest in residential and commercial properties both. So here in residential property, we are getting ROI approximately 3 to 4% per annum. And in commercial, we are getting ROI approximate 7 to 8% per annum. So what is the status of Malta if our investor invest in Malta only for the investment purpose? So what is the ROI expecting in residential and what is ROI expecting in commercial? ROI, I think you understand what I'm saying, no? ROI, return on investment.
Okay, you're talking about rate of investment
Return on investment.
through renting or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rate of investment is around, it depends of course on where the property is bought and at which price you buy. So you have to be intelligent enough to buy the right property in the right place. But generally speaking, if I were to take an average, it's around 6%. But there are two elements, now going back to the previous question, because you have, say, 6% return on your investment every year, but then you also have capital appreciation. What you are buying today for 100,000, within 3-5 years' time, you can sell for 120, 130. So you are making 6% return on an annual basis, ongoing basis. But when you come to dispose, if you ever want to dispose of that property, you have capital appreciation. And sometimes the capital appreciation, as I showed you in that slide, I mean, if you have the penthouse and the price goes up 30% in 3 years, I mean, that's a 30% return. It's a capital appreciation. So you have to distinguish two things. One, capital appreciation. Two, the rate of return.
Yeah.
And also, I have to tell you, the cost of maintaining that property. Because many countries, for example, charge municipal rates. We do not have any of these rates, many of these taxes. So really, whatever you earn as rental or whatever, you will be able to keep. I have to say, on rental income, there is a flat tax rate of 15%. Okay, so if you rent a property for 10,000 euros, you have to pay 1,500 a year in tax on the rental of that property.
So this 6% on residential and commercial both, or there is a different ratios?
Commercial is it's much more difficult to say because what are we talking about commercials? Is it warehouses? Are we talking about retail
Commercial
outlets?
is like hotels, commercial like shops,
Hotels.
showrooms and all that things.
Hotels, you know, you could have 15% return if you have a good hotel, you know, and then as I said, it depends.
15%.
It depends on the area, on the type of facility. But generally speaking, hotels, it depends how well they are run. What I can tell you is at the moment, in the last 4 or 5 years, hotels have had an incredibly good accommodation rate. It's over 85% throughout the year. So many of them are making quite good returns. But it varies whether it's 3-star, 5-star, 4, you know. I cannot
Okay.
just give
Oh,
you
yeah.
one figure.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.